didn't already watch my video last week, you'll know now the Adidas F50 is coming back. Sorta. The last few months it's been leaked online and through social media that the F50 is coming back. I recently got my hands on a pair and did an unboxing review last week and kind of just looked over all the details of the boot, and that was a week ago. I've now tested and worn this boot probably 7-8 times, probably 15-ish hours put into these boots, and I have a lot of really good things to say and very few bad things to say. I will start off by saying that no, it does not feel like the older F50s. This does not feel like the 2014 Samba pair. It doesn't feel like the 2010 Primes. It doesn't even feel like the 2015 whatever we want to call those. I really don't consider those F50s. It feels like its own boot, but with how lightweight it is, with how it performed, with who I think is going to be wearing this boot, it's definitely going to be at least a tribute to the F50 line. Now I'm gonna jump into the full on-foot review, and I just wanna say one last thing, and that's please take everything I say with a grain of salt. I don't know what all these technologies are actually supposed to emulate or the point of them. I have an idea, yes, but again, nobody who actually gets information from Adidas and then does videos or works at a soccer retail store, or even Adidas themselves haven't put anything out about this boot. So please don't be upset with me if I don't know the answer to your question. I'm doing my best. If you have a question, please drop a comment. I love responding to them. I'll do what I can to answer your question, and hopefully it resolves. But with that, let's get into the video. So the first thing I'm gonna talk about, and it's the same as every video, is going to be the Soleplate. As I went over this Soleplate in the first video, it shares a lot of similarities with the Ghosted and Speedflow Soleplate, which I believe is the sprint frame Soleplate, maybe. It's a mixture of both Soleplates. The back 4 studs are definitely from the Ghosted and Speedflow. The top 2 studs are from the Ghosted and Speedflow, and then you kind of have the middle toe picks that were on the Crazy Fast and Speed Portal. A lot of names there. Now it does have these kind of conical-ish studs on the mid-foot, forefoot area here. I've got to figure out which one of those is right. But what I just noticed recently while I was actually talking in this video, I had to reshoot this because I didn't actually notice at first. These studs on these kind of conical ones right here have little 360 arrows on them. I'll see if I can get a better view. If not, I'll pull up a picture of them that you can see. And that's probably where the 360 comes from in the Sprint Frame 360, I'm assuming, which is, wow, congratulations, you figured that out on yourself, Charles, you're super smart. Thank you. Now I like using this Soleplate a lot. I wore it mostly on turf, and a very, I wanna call it deep turf, where it's just very long turf that had a lot of rubber pellets in it, so you don't actually sink down into it, but it's very cushiony and very forgiving. I do a lot of training at this facility, and that's where a lot of this B-roll is at. So it was the perfect place to really test out these boots properly. Now, if I would have worn them on a shorter turf like other facilities I train at, then maybe it would have been harder to use these, but I can't confirm that for you. I also did not wear it on grass because Michigan decided to go from 70 degrees to 32 degrees and very, very windy the last week and a half. So sorry. Did not get to wear the FG Soleplate on actual FG ground. Maybe eventually I will be. So as long as you're not playing on super flat or garbage turf, you should be fine wearing this FG Soleplate. And again, I know everybody's gonna hate on me for it, but you can probably wear these on turf just fine. On grass, I'm sure these would do great. And I'm excited to use these if it warms up in the next few weeks. So we'll see if that happens. Now I wanna move on to the upper, which is something a lot of people were asking me about. It feels like a mix between the Tenjin upper on certain parts of the boot and then just a normal plastic upper that's on a lot of modern boots these days. It did have a lot of these tiny little dimples on them, which it says Fiber Touch on the boots. I don't think that was actually meant for these. I'm assuming Fiber Touch is the tongue or the inside of the tongue, which I will get into more later. Now, I will say I don't think that these little plastic extra studs really helped with gripping the ball, better shooting, better passing. If you can see by some of these shots, I didn't really shoot that great, and it's not because of the boots. It just didn't really do what I guess I thought they were supposed to do, and that's provide extra grip. Now, I did feel like my touch on the ball and with the ball was great with these boots. The tongue felt really nice anytime I pinged a shot, pinged a pass, whatever. I never really felt uncomfortable in these boots or that this upper was super stiff. Now, it does definitely feel a lot more broken into my foot, which is great because that means it's doing what I think all non-leather / synthetic uppers should do. Whether it was the Fiber Touch upper or this plastic pieces or whatever it may be, it definitely is a solid upper. Now, do I think that it's anything like the older F50s? No, I do not. It's definitely lightweight like the older F50s, but the touch is not the same. It doesn't feel the same, and that's not a bad thing. But don't expect to be hopping into a pair of these and expect to lace up into a pair of 2014 Adi Zeros or the 2010 Primes or whatever Adi Zero was your favorite, because it's not. It's its own boot. I think this is actually a direction forward for Adidas in the X line, because the Crazy Fast really didn't impress me. The Speed Portal sucked. The Speedflow was cool. The Ghosted was not cool. The 18 and 19 were probably the last two really solid X boots. So I'm glad this is going in the proper direction. So the tongue is something I was worried about its performance because of how it's set up. It is basically a one-piece tongue put into a one-piece upper. Or not a one-piece upper, but a spot where there should be a tongue in a regular pair of boots, if that makes any sense. I've heard Boot Wizard compare it to like a tunnel system, and I guess that kind of makes sense, but it's just kind of bizarre, and I'll show you in footage above this, but it's got an interesting setup, and the compression fit did very well. It's very minimalistic, it's very soft, and it really stretches out, and it's not like a band. So a lot of these boots that I've had issues with that have this kind of tunnel system, we're gonna call it, have very strong bands, whereas these are strong, but they are not elasticy, if that makes sense. So there's not like a band compressing on your foot or constantly pushing on your foot, causing a lot of pain, like what I'm assuming happened with me when I wore other boots with tunnel systems. And I really enjoyed it a lot. I couldn't even tell that there was tongue on either side of my foot, besides just like the top where the tongue normally sits on your foot, if that makes sense. It really just felt natural, and it was nice having that tongue. It did bunch up a little bit. I think that's something that's unavoidable just because of how the tongue system is set up, but I didn't feel uncomfortable. I didn't feel like it was bunched up and then a lace on top of that kind of like fold to where it would cause some sort of issue or pressure on my foot. I had no issue there. I was very impressed the first time I wore these, and I am sorry to Adidas for hating on their compression system or their compression fit system a little bit in the beginning in the last video, because I was just unsure. So my fault there. Definitely a really cool tongue system, and I hope this is something they incorporate on their new boots, because having maybe a different tongue with then this compression system on either side of it on like a Copa, especially if it was leather, might actually be really cool. So we'll see what they do. Not entirely sure what their plan is with this moving forward, but I'm excited. I want to talk about the heel real quick, just because it is similar to the Speedflow. I think it's what's most similar, except it's not as elasticy. It's mostly fabric. It does have a nice kind of cushion and I don't really want to call it like foam, very thin all the way around the sides of the boot from the first eyelet and then all the way down to your heel from the Achilles all the way up on this little back tab. So that is great. That is a good thing. And I really enjoyed it. It was super comfortable. No blisters with these boots whatsoever. And full disclosure, I haven't gotten blisters from a pair of boots since May or June of 2023 when I wore the Superfly 9. I just don't get them. I do get uncomfortable wearing boots, but never any blisters. The fit of this boot is where I'm gonna complain the most about. This is really the only major issue with this boot. And honestly, it wasn't really an issue, but it's not quite the right size for me. I got a 9 US in this boot. It's usually what I wear across the board when I don't know what to wear, unless somebody tells me, hey, you should go half a size down. I got a 9. There is a little bit of extra room in the toes, not enough for me to notice like what normally happens when I wear boots that just almost don't fit me, because to be honest, I'm an 8.75 at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure, and an 8.5 in these might not fit. I think it might be too narrow in an 8.5 like most boots. So if I get a pair in to sell at some point in 8.5, I might try them on first to see, but the 9 was okay with me, just a little bit of extra room. Now, I didn't have any pains from the compression fit system like I was talking about. I didn't have any stud pressure. I didn't feel like this boot wasn't wide enough for my wide feet, which are pretty wide, and usually that's why I go with leather boots. So the only real issue is kind of the room in the toe, and then also the bunching up. So this happened to me with the Predator 24 Elite, if that's what it's called, the non-tongue version of the new Predator, where I just had bunching near the eyelets, and I'll show you some videos or pictures of it on my foot with these, but didn't really enjoy that. I had it a lot near, and kind of like in this area, I'd have a bunch here on both feet for each boot. And then I also had issues where there was a little bit of dead space on the top of the boot here. So like when you scrunch a boot, like if I push this forward, you could see it pushes out a little bit. That had a lot of dead space on either side of my ankle, which is not something I've really had before on a pair of boots. So don't really like that. Maybe it's just because it's a sample pair. Maybe that's how the new pairs are gonna be. We'll find out, right? But I will say that I also laced it differently. So when I lace boots, I always, and I'll just get a close up here for you guys. So you can see the eyelet here. I always come in to out. So I always go from the inside out like this. So the boot's like that, but you can see this other one here, I went from the outside in. So when I put the lace in on these, it came through on the inside, and I'll try to get a better visual if I can. But I did that because of the dead space that was in the kind of ankle area. One of my friends suggested that to me. It didn't really do what I needed it to do, and I still kind of had that bunching and kind of like the dead space on either side of the ankle. It was a little bit better, but it kind of just helped mitigate that a little bit. So biggest complaint from this boot is just the bunching of the material, kind of that dead space in the ankle area. But other than that, you know, nothing else I'm really going to complain about this boot, because it really did a good job. The durability on this boot, I would say, is solid for the amount of time I wore them, only on turf as well. I don't really see any sole separation to a high degree. Now, if I were to really push down on this boot, I think that the glue would start to come away, and like probably on this area here, like the heel cup where I had issues with the Predator 24 was already peeling off. I could probably peel that sucker off if I really tried. It honestly doesn't look like there's a lot of glue in that area, but I haven't had any actual separation. There is a little spot on this boot here where it looks like I either kicked the ground or just went into a 50-50 with somebody, caught their stud, or kicked the wall or something when I played boarded. Who really knows? But it seems great. I don't have any real rips anywhere on this boot. It doesn't appear that the boot's going to be ripping anytime soon. That could be false, because as we've seen, boots are just ripping really quickly. I do not have a sole plate crack like we're seeing in the Predator 24 or the Predator FTs, which seem to be the majority of the boots cracking. I think I've now seen 15 to 20, and my friend Texas Boot Collector has probably got DM'd 1,000 of these boots cracking, of the Predator cracking. But the F50s, the new ones, no cracks in the sole plate yet. Again, I only wore them on turf. So durability so far, 12, 15 hours of play, hanging in there. And the last thing I'm gonna hit on is the lockdown. Now, this is a boot that is a speed boot. Obviously, it's an Adidas X F50, or maybe it's just the F50. Either way, the original F50 was a speed boot, and this is built like a speed boot. So you want good lockdown for these boots. If you're someone who's gonna be doing a lot of step overs, you're a winger. I'm not saying this is a winger boot specifically, but you're gonna want lockdown for this boot. And it did okay. I always wear grip socks, just so you guys know, and 99.9% of the time it's true socks. So anytime I talk about lockdown, just know that I have true socks on. And it did the job. It was still a little big in the toe, like I said. If I planted down really hard to volley or to take a shot or anything like that, I could feel my foot slide occasionally, but that's usually when my foot is a lot more sweaty, and it's a lot harder for the sock and the foot to sit in the boot, and the boot to keep your foot together, because there's a lot of lubrication from the sweat, and it's gross, yes, sorry. But little bit of slippage here and there, nothing to where I would say this boot is not good on lockdown. It's definitely not the best, and I'm hopefully going to get the laceless version of these, so we'll be able to see if the lockdown gets any better or worse with the laceless version. But again, the lockdown was okay with these. Anytime I cut really hard, I didn't feel like my foot was flying out of the boot. I didn't feel like the boot was coming off my foot, and that's a good thing. That means that it's doing its job. So lockdown, great. Not super great, but good enough. It's gonna get the job done. Don't worry about this boot coming off your foot. At the end of the day, I'm really hoping that Adidas just doesn't screw this up. I have no clue if they're gonna market this hard. The way they marketed the Predator FT was pretty great, and we haven't seen marketing like that since probably the 2014 World Cup with the Nike pack. We'll just find out in the next few months. April is the rumors I've heard, maybe May, or maybe even the Euros. There's no definitive date yet. If I did have to rate this boot real quick, I would probably give it an 8.8 or 8.9. We have a very high rating. That's a B+ on the letter grade scale. If you guys enjoyed this review of a pair of unreleased F50s coming out in the next few months, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm bringing all sorts of cool content in the next couple months. And the more likes and subscribes and the bigger the channel grows, the more type of exclusive stuff I can do. And with that, I will see you guys in the next review.